Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and also helping you become a rock star. We're joined by a rock star, a living legend, Sandy Gennaro. He's the drummer to the stars, keynote and Vistage speaker. Beat the odds. We get to talk about beating the drums and beating the odds. But Sandy, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and the privilege of your time.
Absolutely. So for everyone who can see on screen, you've got all sorts of, amazing awards behind you and recognitions, but give us a little bit of just how you got into the music business. So give us a little bit of that story of just how you got interested in music and got into the business.
Well, basically, I received a toy drum for Christmas one year, and it happens to be right here. This is the toy drum. This is the toy drum, and I still, don't ask me how I managed to hold on to the original drumstick, but I have pictures of me playing that drum underneath the Christmas tree at age 3. And I always was attracted to rhythm, and I was firstly attracted to the fact that I can hit stuff with sticks and not get hollered at. But my dad played big band music around the house, so he pointed out what the drummer was doing, whatever. But I never saw a drummer play live until I seen the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, February 1964, and that really lit the fire in me. And I said to myself, I don't know quite what's going on there with how those girls are reacting. They're screaming and yelling and they're going crazy over these guys playing some awesome songs. And so that lit the fire. And from that point on, I used visualization and I pictured myself from a vantage point of being on the drum set, looking out in the audience. And that was my impetus. Basically, I just started playing in high school bands and high school dances and all of that. Then when I was 16, I played my first bar. And I never, ever doubted what this was me. It wasn't like, oh, should I play guitar? Should I play? No, this was me. I was always the drummer. It's like I'm Italian, but I'm also a drummer. You know what I mean? It was in my DNA. And I never wondered what else I should do. And basically, Jeremy, every domino that fell from that point on has been a direct or indirect result of me treating somebody like an equal, treating someone like a human being. And that's what enabled me to move forward. Because opportunities were placed in front of me, and I was aware enough to be aware of these opportunities and take advantage of them. But that's, in essence, in retrospect, is the way I lived my life. And going through my chronological order of my career, basically, as looking back, I realized that, it's because you treated this person a fan or a seemingly insignificant common person. I never put the rock star hat on. Especially as I was growing up, before I started getting really big, noticeable nationwide gigs or whatever. So that's basically how I started, and I'm still playing today. Going to be 70 years old in July, and I'm still playing in a few bands here in Nashville. One is a national kind of tribute band, but yeah, I teach. I could turn the computer around and show you my studio, but I have 2 drum sets here, and I still teach. I had a 27-year teaching career in Manhattan, and that's what enabled me to get better at the drums. And that teaching career happened because of this, and this happened because I was nice and did somebody a favor, and it just blew up. So that's basically one of the lessons I portray in my presentation.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're a teacher, you're a presenter and speaker. You cover so much bandwidth in terms of what you do to give back and share your story. How do you describe, because I look at, the drummer is the backbone. Drummer is you are the foundation. You are not only keeping the rhythm and keeping the beat and everything, but you're the backbone. So how do you describe being a drummer in terms of the importance of the role and, like you said, kind of the influence it has on carrying the song forward?
That's exactly right. And you know what? The metaphor carries over into the corporate world too, because as the CEO drummer, you are the engine of the car. You are the backbone of the band. You are the foundation of your company. As you go, the band goes. I don't care if there's guitar players in the audience, keyboard players, whatever. The drummer is the most important. Wake up to reality. The drummer is the most important. But a CEO is like that. Like when I was the MD drummer for Bo Diddley, I was a musical director for Bo Diddley. You know, it was my job to hire a band, to train the band. But at the same time, you want to be an ambidextrous drummer, musical director. You want to, if you see somebody going, you know, if the tree starts growing a little crooked, you got to kind of gently straighten it out without being reprimand, or now, you know, without being harsh or without cutting the person down. The idea is to build them up, and to know when to let them go and allow them to create. Hey, buddy, when you do your guitar solos, go to the front of the stage and get the spotlight on you. Right. You know what I mean? And introducing the band and all of that. You want to call out what an employee does good. You want to catch them doing something good, as opposed to walking by them at the dinner table and smacking your kid in the head for not eating his peas. You know, it's like that. So in a drummer's world, a lot correlates to what a CEO or what a manager should do and how he trains his people. And I've worked with CEOs, the person whose name is on the marquee, and I see how Joan Jett ascertains a band. I see how Cyndi has a vision way at the beginning of her career, before anybody knew who she was. She had a certain vision of her look, of her style, of her voice, of her material, how a band should look, how the band should dress, how the stage should look. And she would never allow somebody to say, sorry, you can't do that. So a lot of the lessons that I've learned in rock and roll, being a musical director and also being a sideman to the person whose name is on the marquee, I've learned a lot about how to keep people entertained, how to keep people involved in their work, where they'll stay an extra half hour to get the job done correctly, you know, having to do with feeling part of the success of the band or part of the success of the company. There's a lot of correlations. There's a lot of differences, but there are also a lot of correlations.
You mentioned Cyndi. So talk about Cyndi Lauper. You worked with Cyndi Lauper. So share a little bit of the story of meeting Cyndi Lauper and getting to work with her.
All right, I'll share a little bit of that story. I was playing in an arena in 1981, and again, I was in a real big hurry getting out of the dressing room. We had a long drive, and this seemingly common fan was in the doorway. I'm the last one in the dressing room. I'm getting my stuff together, and I could have easily blew by him, being in a tremendous hurry, and over his shoulder was my road manager going, come on. Everybody else was on the bus. So I could have blew by him, but I didn't blow by him. I could have put the rock star hat on and blow by him. I could have put the polite rock star hat on and went, sorry, buddy, I'm in a hurry, I gotta go. But I always wear the Sandy hat, proverbially speaking. So I went over to him and I said, what can I do for you? He asked me for an autograph or whatever. Listen, I engaged the guy. And I'll tell the details of the story in a present. I do tell the story in detail in a presentation, but I engaged a seemingly common fan guy, and he was totally cool. I gave him my home address and phone number because he asked me to help him get a gig in New York City. He couldn't believe I was there giving him my home address and phone number. 3 years later, he called me and goes, Sandy, you were so nice to me in that doorway. I'm managing this girl now. I want you to I'll be the drummer in the band. And it happened to be Cyndi Lauper. There's a lot of other little details to that story, but every single gig that I've gotten in my life has been a direct or indirect result of me treating somebody like a human being, like an equal, regardless of what the color they are, regardless of how they're dressed, whatever, go down politically, influences or whatever. If they're dressed shabbily, if they're a CEO or they're a janitor, I treat the janitor the same way I treat the CEO, and I treat my roadie the same way I treat the the artist whose name is on the marquee. That's the way, you know what? There's a demand for me as a speaker, reviewing these core concepts that everybody should have. And if everybody had them, and if everybody used them, and CEOs and band leaders and artists used them, there would be no use for me as a speaker. Because everybody uses those core concepts, but I constantly remind the people about those core concepts and how you don't do those things for the if somebody's looking. You don't do those things for any kind of agenda of what you can get in return. The universe takes care of that.
Yeah, I think everything you're talking about, the power of relationships, and like you said, respect. And hey, you also learn, like you said, Rockstar 101, sometimes the worst dressed are the most successful people. So
no kidding. No kidding.
You can't assume that you can't judge a book by its cover for sure. But
absolutely.
Talk about B.E.A.T.S, because you break down B.E.A.T.S, which obviously ties to drumming, but B.E.A.T.S is an acronym in terms of how you use it. So give us a little bit of a teaser for B.E.A.T.S.
Everybody should have the beats are the most important thing a drummer should play. He should serve a song by playing simple beats. It's not about the extracurricular and everything you learned in Juilliard. You have to play for the song and serve the song. And B.E.A.T.S applies to CEOs. B.E.A.T.S applies to parenting. B.E.A.T.S applies to everybody in a leadership role. And it stands for belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service. And basically, your belief, your attitude, and your service are the core principles. The enthusiasm and the tenacity come as a result of your belief in the core principles and your attitude. So that's basically it. You put those things together and live your life. Living your life, your day-to-day personal and business life like that, you have no idea the possibilities. And I'm still, only 5% of musicians that pick up an instrument make a living for longer than 1 year. And I'm in this business, it's going on 53 years, and it's still going strong. So there's got to be I'm not going to say it's a secret of success, but everybody has to, it's the commandments of life, basically. The core commandments of life, Talk
about being a speaker and where people can see you speak, and just in general for you on the presentation side, the speaker side, where can we go to learn more? Where can we go to see you in action?
Well, as far as seeing me in action in terms of a speaker, I do Vistage presentations, which involve like a group of, anywhere from 10 to 20 CEOs in a conference room. Those are private. I do keynotes for associations and conferences. And yes, I can have a guest, but those are basically private gigs. So you can go ahead and book me for your company, and you'll get a front row seat.
There you go.
And I will do presentations anywhere and I look forward to a possibility of me speaking for cityCURRENT sometime in 22. You can go to my website, sandygennaro.com, GENNARO.com, Facebook, whatever. But yeah, so as far as seeing me as a speaker, it's kind of difficult because I speak at private events.
Well, hey, that, like you said, the best way to see you speak is to book you.
That's correct. That's correct.
What inspires you when you look at other drummers, the music business, speakers at this point in your career? What inspires you? Who inspires you?
Well, you know what? In general, as far as speaking goes, I draw my inspiration from a gentleman named Michael Pierce, and he goes by a speaking title. His stage name, so to speak, is Antarctic Mike. And basically, this is another reason, and the reason why I'm a speaker, Jeremy, is because I had no idea what I was going to do after in my 70s and whatever. But I threw a drumstick about 4 years ago. I was playing an arena in San Diego, and I threw a drumstick to a handicapped person. And the person next to her intercepted the drumstick, and I could have just walked by looking forward to my ice cold beer backstage. But no, I went back and made sure she had the drumstick, and I replaced the one to the guy that intercepted, whatever. The next day, I get a call from the husband sitting on the other side, a Facebook message, and says, "Hey, you really had an effect on my wife. You reached out to her. You made sure she had the drumstick. She's handicapped. Nobody ever pays attention to her. I really appreciate it. She's going to put it in the shadow box and all that. He said, I'm coming to Nashville. You're based in Nashville. Yeah. I'm coming to Nashville to speak. I want to thank you in person. Would you have a coffee with me? And again, I could have blew him off. He's a speaker. What am I going to do? You know, what, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock? What? My wife goes, you never know. Go ahead, you never know. He wants to thank you. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. So I went. Long story short, Jeremy, I told him the Cyndi Lauper story in greater detail, and he tells it during his presentation, which I'm on the side of the stage for. He introduces me, and he says, can I, is it okay if I tell the Cyndi Lauper story? I said, go ahead. And it got a good reaction. Obviously, being in the music business and teaching and giving and creating the music business program at the school, I was used to speaking in front of people, and you probably get the idea now that I have no problem speaking. So he invites, after that presentation where he told the story, he invited me to FedEx. He was doing an all-day training at FedEx in Collierville, outside of Memphis. And he said, I'll get permission from the people of FedEx. I'll come and I'll have you as my guest. I'll give you 15 minutes to tell the story. So I told the story, and I took Cyndi Lauper story. It got a really good reactions. He says, walking out of FedEx that day, he said, you have a career as a speaker, man. That story, and you probably have a lot more that correlate in that same message. He says, I will help you any way I can. And that planted the seed. Well, maybe I could do this. And it took me 3 years to become a Vista speaker, and it was incrementally, and Mike was my mentor. He inspires me in terms of my speaker. There's a couple of other speakers too, Gare Maxwell, a couple other guys. As a drummer, and I have his autograph on a drum head over there, Ringo is my hero. Ringo is the epitome of a drummer that plays for the song. He serves the song. I talk about something in my presentation about the way you describe a musician is like all icing and no cake. And that's the guy that plays a million notes, steps on the vocal all the time. Look at me. Look at what I could do. It's not about that. When you sit behind a drum set, if you're doing a solo, it's one thing. But if you're playing songs with other members of a band and a singer, you have to play as the foundation. You're not the roof of the house. You're the foundation of the house. You are the cake. And Ringo is the epitome of a drummer that plays for the song. Some of the parts that he came up with in some of those songs, yes, maybe George Martin helped him out a little bit, the producer, but whatever. He agreed. You know what I mean? He took direction. If the tree was starting to grow a little crooked, George Martin would go, hey, Ringo, and he took the direction. So that is my muse in terms of a drummer.
That's awesome. Give me one special moment for you in your music career that puts a smile on your face. It could be anything, but what puts a smile on your face?
What puts a smile on my face is the time when I had the awesome opportunity of being in a band that opened for Queen in 1986. And what puts a smile on my face is after having a conversation with Freddie Mercury at these parties that they used to have, I asked him, I said, can I take a picture of you? Can I come on stage and take a picture of you guys? Would that make you uncomfortable? He says, not at all, Sandy. I love your accent. And I don't mind at all. Just wear your laminate and stay out of the view of the audience. That's all I ask you to do. So he came over, and I used to be on the side of the stage without the camera almost every night, especially when I heard the intro of Tie Your Mother Down, Brian May, whatever. That tour in general was an opening act. You probably never heard of the band that was in. It was a German band. But that tour in general was one of my highlights of my half a century. But the moment that makes me smile, and I have the picture over there. I wish I was a little mobile. Maybe sometime we'll do another Zoom, Jeremy, and I show you around my studio. You love the memorabilia. See that smile on your face?
I love it. Yeah.
That's what I know you love it. Putting the camera at the end of the grand piano was facing the side of the stage, where if I'm at the grand piano, I'm at the side of I'm facing the side of the stage, and I'm Freddie Mercury playing this, facing the side of the stage. I was on that end of the piano with my Nikon resting with his glasses, his drink cups, and whatever, and he started playing "I Pay My Dues" on the piano. And he's kind of glancing up at me and kind of like acknowledging me. And then whatever, that is my highlight moment. That when every time I think of that moment and shaking Freddie's hand at the party, that was just awesome.
Very, very
and I have
cool.
that picture. The picture is on the wall there. It's
And
you want me to
that's a
show
great
you?
example of, everything in your room has a special moment and a special
does.
memory. And I think that's the coolest part about really just life is you create all these special memories and moments based on these relationships and putting in all the
Absolutely.
hard work to get to these moments. And then
And
you appreciate them as you sit there and look around, you think, every single thing has a special memory and moment.
Absolutely. And Jeremy, you mentioned relationships, and it's the person to person relationships, no matter where they are on the corporate totem pole, in the life pyramid, no matter, it's all about the relationships. And the relationships as it applies to life is the cake. Okay. The numbers, the spreadsheets, the pie graphs, the quotas at the end of the quarter, or whatever, the prerequisites and all of that, that's all important. But it's not all there is. You got to get to the why behind the what.
Love it. We'll wrap up again because you mentioned it before, but mention again your website, social media. Where do we go to follow your efforts?
Okay, my website is, again, Sandy, SandyGenn, like Nancy, ARO.com. And all my social media is just my name. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. And again, that's how you get in touch with me. It may take me a day or two, but if you contact me, my email address is Sandy, Sandy, at SandyGennaro.com. You email me with a question, a comment, or whatever you want to say hi. It may take me a day, but I always answer everybody. Everybody.
Well, Sandy, I greatly appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, Jeremy, and I love your smile, and hopefully we'll cross paths someday.